I think there are two kinds of people in the world right now. There are people who believe the evidence that climate change is happening, and there are people who don't. This video is for the people who do. The people who understand and worry and want to know what we can do differently. Because you people are the most important people in the world right now, because this is the world's biggest problem. We literally don't have time to worry about the tiny, noisy group of deniers. So I don't want to lose you by doing yet another video telling you that the climate is warming, deserts are expanding, and sea levels are rising, because I know that you already know that. Instead, I want to tell you about some new things, and then I want to tell you what we can do.
Here's a piece of paper. I want you to think of it as the climate of the world. If you hold it like this, then it stays upright. The climate is in balance. However, as we pump more CO2 into the atmosphere, the climate that we know and love and are literally evolved to survive within suddenly, drastically changes. Now here's the important bit. If we only start to try to remove CO2 then, by moving our hands further up the paper, and sorry to be macabre, but we might all be dead by then. But if we do try and remove CO2 from the atmosphere, then we can't necessarily expect it to just go back to the way it was before when we return past that tipping point. It stays destabilized. Instead, we have to keep on removing more and more CO2 until eventually we return to a safe zone where things restabilize. The scary thing is, we have literally no idea when this collapse point might occur. It could be in 100 years, it could be tomorrow. We have to assume that it is going to be soon. Here are the three important numbers. 300 ppm, the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere for the past million years. 200 ppm, the concentration of CO2 that generally coincides with an ice age. 400 ppm, the concentration of CO2 that we have in the atmosphere right now. We've ramped it up this high in barely the time it takes an oak tree to grow. We are venturing into some serious unknown.
Imagine you're floating down a river, blindfolded, and you know there's a big waterfall coming soon. You don't just wait around to see what the waterfall's going to be like, do you? You start swimming against the river now.
Uh-oh.
Don't tell me. We're about to go over a huge waterfall.
Yep.
Sharp rocks at the bottom?
Most likely.
Bring it on.
So far, the effects are subtle to most of us. It's easy for most human beings to ignore the fact that any of this is happening. But these subtle effects are starting to have a significant impact on the most sensitive living things.
This year, in a colony of 40,000 Adelie penguins, only 2 chicks survived. The rest all died of starvation. This is the second time that this has happened in this colony in the last 4 years. Meanwhile, there are currently only a few thousand species on the verge of extinction, as classified by the IUCN. I say only 1,000 because that really doesn't tell the whole story.
Think of it like this. There's Coca-Cola advertising everywhere in the world. It might as well be written on the moon. But if Coca-Cola advertising suddenly started disappearing from Japan and Europe and South America, there'd still be a lot of Coca-Cola adverts in the world, but we'd start to worry that maybe something was going wrong with Coca-Cola, right? There are far, far more than just a few thousand species that are undergoing local extinctions. That's the thing that's most worrying to me.
But as I said before, the changes so far are subtle. Things could so easily change beyond our imaginations. We haven't yet reached that collapse point. I mean, think about our 2 nearest neighbours in space. Venus's surface temperature is so hot that lead melts on its surface. Mars's surface temperature is so cold that water instantly freezes on its surface. Actually, it also instantly vaporizes, which is a really interesting story, but let's not get into that now. Our best guess as to when the collapse point will happen is when average temperatures rise about 2 degrees centigrade, that's 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit, above what they were before the Industrial Revolution. We're already over halfway there. 16 of the 17 warmest years on record occurred in the last 17 years. There's this incredible place called the World Seed Vault, also called the Doomsday Vault, on Svalbard in the Arctic Circle. I'd love to go there. It has spare copies of every single useful seed that we can think of in the world in case of some massive chaos breaking out. The idea is that it's built on land safe from earthquakes. So far so good. And also built on land that's so cold that it can almost keep itself refrigerated without needing any of our help. Although last year, temperatures rose much higher than expected and the vault flooded.
As things change in the atmosphere, a lot of people are worrying that there are going to be more hurricanes, but actually, current thinking is that there are probably going to be fewer. We can't know for sure because we're venturing into the unknown.
Hurricanes form because the world is a little bit like a steaming hot chocolate pudding sandwiched between 2 scoops of delicious ice cream, presumably brown bread flavoured ice cream, because that, seriously, is by far the most delicious ice cream. The equator is hot and the poles are cold. The tension between the hot and the cold cools the cake down and heats the ice cream up. The cake isn't meant to be cold, the ice cream isn't meant to be hot. It's chaos in there. This tension between the hot equator and the cold poles is what leads to hurricanes. As the world heats up, we think the poles are going to get hotter faster than the equator, which means there'll actually be less tension between the warmer poles and the hot equator. It's like a world with only steaming hot sponge cake in it and no ice cream.
However, we also think that the hurricanes that do form are going to be a lot worse. Because as the atmosphere gets warmer, it'll also get more humid as it's able to carry more water, and that means that things are going to get more intense. There comes a point when we're going to have to stop calling natural disasters natural anymore.
So what do we do about it? We need to act, and we need to act very fast. Remember, we live in a market society, which means that when people become the change that they want to see in the world starts to change very rapidly. I mean, think just a few decades ago, there were almost no vegetarian and vegan aisles in supermarkets. Now, they are everywhere.
There are a lot of things you can do, and I'll put a list under this video for you, but the absolute number one thing that you should do is avoid buying beef. Beef is literally at least 8 times worse than every other meat in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, not to mention the vast amount of water usage and the enormous amount of land usage compared to other meats as well. Seriously, if all Americans decided tomorrow to switch all of their beef to beans so they were still getting the same amount of protein, that alone would take them fully 50% of the way to their Climate 2020 targets from the Paris Agreement. That alone. I've been Matthew Shribman. Thanks for watching. Spread the knowledge. You can find me on Instagram at Matthew Shribman. And remember, we have no idea how close to the collapse point we are. We all have to start making changes now.